Hello everybody, my name is Ace and welcome to my Bioshock Infinite spoiler-free review. I recently bought the Bioshock games in a bundle, and I really enjoyed making my last review video. So, today I'll weigh in on how well I think Bioshock Infinite performed, and I'll give it a rating based on whether or not I would recommend it to someone who's shopping around for something new to play. Bioshock Infinite is the third game in its series, preceded by Bioshock and Bioshock 2. Infinite is a single-player first-person shooter, and it features a majestic cityscape floating in the clouds. This is in stark contrast to Bioshock's derelict underwater metropolis, and whether you've played either of the other Bioshock games or not, I'm sure you can appreciate this game's mind-bending adventure. This game starts out very slowly, when a determined Booker DeWitt approaches a lighthouse with one thing in mind: bring us the girl and wipe away the debt. He finds himself transported to a city known as Columbia, nestled in the clouds. He then sets out in search of a girl who's so valuable, for whatever reason, that she can be exchanged for a debt accumulated by a life of sin. While in the city, Booker discovers that it's run by a prophet known as Zachary Comstock, and this prophet has foreseen the arrival of Booker, labeling him the false shepherd. Once he's discovered by the people of Columbia, all-out chaos ensues, as he has to fight supernatural enemies with amazing powers in wild firefights. Before I begin listing the game's positive and negative attributes, I'll briefly explain my scoring system. I rate games on a 1 to 5 star scale, because people tend to only use the last 5 digits of a 1 to 10 scale anyway. A 1-star game is one I don't think anyone should play for any reason, because it's just so unplayable in every way. A 1-star game is so bad that I'll approach a stranger on the subway, just to tell them about how they should avoid the game at all costs. On the opposite end of the scale is a 5, and I'll award a 5 to a game that just impresses me overall. It's a game that you can play as a first-timer and still have a lot of fun. In the middle ground, games that I rate a 3 have a lot of positives, but just as many negatives, and they may be harder for people to get into because of their niche appeal. Otherwise, I may rate a game a 3.5 or a 2.5 because the whole number ratings don't really do them justice, but I'll be sure to explain why I feel that way when those ratings come up. To kick us off, there are several things about Infinite that I really enjoyed. Here are the highlights. The scenery. The city of Columbia's design is outstanding. It's like a dreamscape. There are artworks everywhere, and the architecture is breathtaking. Several times while I was playing, it felt nice to stop and appreciate the finer details put into the game's design. The imagery strewn throughout Columbia can be beautiful and unsettling at the same time. The combat. The combat of this game, whether you're coming from the previous Bioshock games or not, is very smooth. The controls are intuitive, and instead of making you switch between your supernatural abilities and your gun, both are ready to use at the press of a button, which makes it easier to combo. The landscape lets you use things like a puddle of water or a barrel of spilled oil to your advantage too, if you're creative enough. The storytelling. Columbia is such a beautiful city. It seems to be floating on the clouds. The citizens are happy, the artwork is masterful. But when you take a closer look at it, you start to notice a tarnish in its sheen. The story of the game really takes time to explore the secrets of the city. The game delves into how the city is kept afloat at the cost of the common worker, and those common workers are separated from the wealthy upper-class citizens. This divide in wealth is shared with a divide in race, and is reinforced by the city's leader. All around are artworks that portray religious and political messaging supporting this divide. Infinite takes time to explore these contrasting classes, and much more, throughout your journey through this beautiful, albeit imperfect, city. Bioshock Infinite has many positives to it, I could go on, really, but for the sake of being critical, here are some negatives to consider. The difficulty scaling. In my experience, this game had a problem with difficulty scaling. I played through on hard mode, but I didn't have any trouble plowing through waves upon waves of enemies until a very specific part of the game. And at that point, I got frustrated. I can tell how this may be a personal issue because of individual player skill and level of cleverness, but I'm going to count this game's suddenly steep learning curve as a negative. The complicated plot. A lot of people simply don't like complicated plots. That can be because the crazy plot lines are hard to follow, or sometimes it's because complex stories run into plot holes or create paradoxes, and that's usually because of their own convolution. If a complex plot is usually a turnoff for you when you go to play games, you may not want to try Infinite. It really dives into ideas like alternate realities and the structure of society, and that might be overwhelming. The gore. This isn't always a deal breaker for everyone, but Bioshock Infinite has a noteworthy amount of gore in it, and that's to be expected. The game explores so many dark themes and makes you question your character's motivation through it all. While you're brutally massacring dozens of soldiers, it's hard to reconcile who the bad guy really is. So, with all of the positives and negatives taken into account, what would I rate Bioshock Infinite? I would rate it 5 stars. This is the first game I've given a 5-star rating to, and I promise I don't just give them out willy-nilly. I like this game so much, from its graphic design to its deeper meaning, that I have nothing but support for it. So, to sum up my game review, I would recommend this game to someone who likes visually beautiful game designs, plays first-person shooters, or likes complicated plots. I would not recommend this game to someone who doesn't like adult themes. Bioshock Infinite is just such an outstanding game that you really are doing yourself a disservice if you're just sitting on the fence about it. I highly recommend it. Well, that about sums up my review. If you liked the video, make sure you hit the like button, and if you want to see more from me, the adorable Ace, then you might as well subscribe. Anyway, I'm gonna go take a nap because I had a really hard week. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.